Welcome to Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse, a podcast exploring cult classics, subculture, and geek media. I'm Nick.
And I'm Dave.
And we will be your tour guides for this deep dive of Russell Mulcahy's 1986 non-linear fantastic noir fantasy adventure, Highlander.
This is a huge movie for me. This is one of the biggest ones we've ever done.
Yeah, it's something we've talked about doing for a long, long time. And this is, we're at the penultimate episode of our Sword and Sorcery series, and sort of the penultimate episode of this podcast. Yeah. And so we're running out of time to get this movie in, so we had to do it here.
So more on that whole the podcast situation at the end. So if you need to fast forward and listen because you're too excited about it, just go to the end, just before the end credits,
and then come back.
Yeah, and then come back and listen to the whole podcast. But this is I called it an urban fantasy swords and sorcery movie.
For sure.
And this one was absolutely worshipped by me as a kid. I saw this probably, not 100 times, but a lot of times.
So what I was wondering, because we were deep in on this series, to the point that we played a homebrew role-playing game set, or using the mythology or whatever of Immortals.
Yeah, that was like partially some internet found stuff back in the proto-internet when it was like
bulletin boards.
Yeah, and then me and a couple of other friends had done some heavy rules writing for that, and I still have it somewhere.
Yeah, it was in
homebrew
in the White Wolf World of Darkness format, if you know what that is, you nerds.
Yeah, and it's actually a really good format because all of them, it's all stat based and power stat based, and so every type of supernatural has a unique power stat, and Highlanders have the quickening, so it's an obvious given.
Yeah. So my question was the movie your introduction to this franchise?
Yes.
Okay,
absolutely.
Interesting. Because I think I definitely saw the show before I saw the movie. Like I saw the show and then the second movie. Then I went back and watched the first movie.
Oh.
And then saw the later ones in the theater as they came out.
So you had kind of a twisted upbringing.
Yeah, definitely. You and I saw the fourth one together in the theater, the one that has Connor and Duncan together.
Yeah,
which was not a good movie.
Yeah, it was not great. This one, I hadn't watched this movie in a very long time because I didn't want to shatter my illusions.
Yeah.
Or whatever, shatter my memories. But it turned out to be really good. But the show, on the other hand, which I watched religiously after I saw this movie, it was not as good as I remembered, mostly because it was just really slow.
Yeah.
The show is really formulaic. It's very simplistic. Whereas I think that this movie has some fun twists. The plot is fairly straightforward, but it mixes it up with a lot of nonlinear storytelling. Tarantino owes his whole career to this movie.
That's a stretch, but yeah, it is true. I mean, it is a very influential movie. That's not a stretch.
Sean Connery, come on.
Yeah, and it's got very interesting, innovative camera work and stuff that people have copied.
That's something I'm going to talk about in one of our sections because I love how this movie is shot.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. The movie actually exceeded my expectations as far as like going back to it. This is a better movie than I remembered it being.
Yeah. I remembered it being awesome, but then again, this was one of those like that I rewatched as a kid. But I also got to give a head nod to the old man who had, he had the Highlander replica sword and a bunch of the merch from the show and all of the seasons of the show on VHS.
Yeah.
When they sold those mega packs.
You have to give that show credit because so now, where we have like the CW and Netflix and these things that are kind of loaded with genre entertainment. We didn't have that when we were teens. And Highlander was a pretty important TV show for fans of genre stuff.
Yeah. And this was really, in my opinion, kind of the banner carrier for the super niche subgenre of urban fantasy.
Oh, definitely.
Like, there's no Dresden Files without this show.
Mm-hmm. I was so glad that I didn't use the Fantastic Noir tag for Dragon Slayer, so that I kept it for this one, because it's like as soon as Connor like comes out in his trench coat with his sort of half shadowed face, looking all serious at the wrestling match, I was like, oh, this is what Fantastic Noir, that's what that genre is.
Yeah, for sure. And just sort of going back to the old RPG thing that I always touch on, this one has an RPG, a real one, not just an old moldy oldie. Yeah. There was something published a long time ago that was obscure and niche, but this one, the Highlander RPG, is published by Evil Genius Games, and which is a company that has been around for a while, but now it's partially owned by Luke Gygax, Gary Gygax's son, who's not a douchebag. He's the cool one who puts on Gary Con and doesn't say all the lame stuff like
the men's rights stuff or whatever.
Yeah. He's not that guy. He's like a cool girl dad, and he's like a weightlifting guy on. So he's pretty nice.
The Gygax house is a house divided.
Really. House the black apple fossaways, and like, I don't know, they're just there's half jackass, half not. But anyway, this Highlander RPG, I looked into it. I'm probably gonna buy it.
Yeah, that would be you have to.
It's really pretty decent. It's because it's rules light and simple, which is what I like. I prefer those kind of games. It's not quite as light as Dresden Files RPG, but it's approaching.
Yeah,
and so that's pretty cool. And I gotta say, when I was a kid, I wanted to be the Kurgan. Like, I basically wanted to be the Kurgan all the time. I would run around with a two-handed sword and just like scream mean things at people.
Yeah. So when Lisa and I, the movie got done, and Lisa could never remember the name, the Kurgan. She kept calling him the Kruig.
The Keurig, or whatever, coffee maker.
Yeah. And she was like, I bet David really likes the Keurig. And I was like, the Kurgan. And you can be sure that he was a kid that said, I want to be the Kurgan.
Yeah. I mean, but I was also the kid, like, the 7-year-old that wanted to be Darth Vader.
Exactly.
So, I mean, there's just those kids.
The Kurgan's iconic, man. He is a very cool villain.
Yeah. And in the beginning, he's just like this evil Black Knight. And then later on, he's like this punk rock miscreant.
Yeah.
He's like very, very selfish and fuck you.
I love him with the mullet and like the slicked back black mullet.
Oh yeah.
Clancy Brown has a lumpy head. The
he
bald
does not look good.
The baldy looks real rough on him. Like, that's one of you don't know until you shave your head what it's gonna look like. His did not look good.
Yeah, it was that was a really sorry turn. He should have left the hair. But I think that this one was not a disappointment when it came to my childhood memories. So
that's always nice.
I'm pretty happy about that. And there are a few stylistic choices I didn't love, but that's just in retrospect. There's so much rich ground that they could have done more with cool side things, but it was already a 2-hour movie.
Yeah. We've always been kind of holding off on this to do it around the time that the Chad Stahelski, Henry Cavill remake materialized. Yeah. Do we think that movie's ever going to happen? Do we want it to happen?
I do want it to happen.
You do? Okay.
I think Chad Stahelski proved with the last, the John Wick movies and whatnot, how they just get better and better. Or grander and grander, I should say.
He's absolutely a terrific choice to direct a Highlander movie.
Yeah, and I mean, even if Cavill doesn't do it because he seems to be in and out of whatever, even if they got somebody else, I think that Stahelski would make it good.
I think he would be a good choice for a Connor McLeod. He's slightly getting towards the end of the age range that you'd want him to be in. So if they do it in the next couple of years, I think he's still a good choice. If I was a producer, I'd want someone younger probably to do it, that you can build a franchise on.
But it's hard because you want to find one of those guys who is a convincing Highland Scotsman warrior wielding a claymore. You don't want to have like a Timothée Chalamet.
Yeah, it's not a good fit for a Chalamet.
You need
who I love and think he can do
he's
anything.
An awesome actor, but I think you need a beefy guy.
Yeah,
in order to.
I mean, Christopher Lambert is not beefy.
but he's kind of round shouldered and plain looking ish.
Yeah.
I think he pulls off rugged quite well.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe Chalamet can be rugged. I just haven't seen him in that role.
Yeah.
Who knows? No idea.
Well. We've gone a little long for the start, so should we roll for initiative and get into
initiative. That? 17.
I got a 6, so you go first.
Nice. I got 2 stories, and neither of them are very big or very long-winded. This is an update on the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard.
Ooh.
The federal court has denied the preliminary injunction of this merger. It's a big win for Microsoft. Microsoft was forced to give some concessions. They promised in publicly and in writing that they would keep the Call of Duty franchise available cross platforms for at least 10 years. But that's one franchise. And it's not even one I play. It's a big one. But this pretty much is going to be really harsh on Sony, because Sony has been the one who was the dick about exclusive titles.
Right.
And now Microsoft is going to do the same to them.
Yeah. But then you say it was denied, though?
Oh, no. The preliminary injunction, which is the prevention. People saying, hey, you got to stop this. This is going to be a monopoly. The judge said, no, this is not going to actually create a monopoly. This is not going to substantially lessen competition. The judge said that he believes that it will actually increase competition.
Ooh. I'd like to know how old this judge was.
He probably has never played a video game.
Yeah, because even just 10 years of non-exclusivity on Call of Duty, that's not going to last long. You know what I mean? Like that will be up before you know it.
Yeah, Microsoft can wait 10 years. They're like, whatever, man. If it takes us 10 years to strangle PlayStation, fine.
Yeah.
See you in 2033.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, well... I mean, big win for the home team as far as I guess.
Yeah, they're right here.
They're our giant. Too bad. I swapped over to Team Sony, and I really was liking it.
I'm on Team Sony too. Go ahead. What you got?
Okay, so my first one is yesterday. The first teaser for Godzilla -1 dropped, and it's a great teaser because it's super short. Like it's like 54 seconds, less than a minute. It's a true teaser. It's not a give it all away trailer. And so this is going to be the first Japanese produced Godzilla movie since Shin Godzilla in 2016, I think. And it is going to release in November in Japan, and we got a US release of December 1st. And this is the one that's directed by Takashi Yamazaki, who he's got 3 Japanese Academy Awards under his belt. He's quite a prestigious director and is a big devotee to the franchise. So I've got high expectations for this movie. And the teaser is awesome. It's taking things back to the post-war Showa era of Japan. It's a kind of a retro style like horror movie, like going back to the roots of the franchise. And I'm super stoked for it.
Well, that sounds rad.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I'll see it unless I see it with you.
Yeah,
I don't
probably.
tend to seek these movies myself, but I like that.
Yeah.
It sounds cool. So my second one is just an update on something I talked about previously. Both of mine are. The new Star Wars Ahsoka trailer was released, and it was really good. They've all been really good.
That's a hot trailer. It's really good. I got home from work yesterday, watched the Godzilla teaser. the Ahsoka trailer. Like I had a priority list. Ahsoka's number 2.
And this just came out. We record these a couple days before they drop, and so this is hot from hot from Disney, and it's got appearances from all of the Rebels characters pretty much. We got Harrison, Syndulla, Sabine Wren, Chopper, Ezra Bridger, and of course Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Ooh, he looks good too.
So I'm stoked for this. I can't wait to see it. I have this cynical part of me that says, fuck Disney. Star Wars is over. That's the Portlandia part of me, but I always like it. Not all of it, but I didn't like the Bad Batch, but that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I liked Mandalorian. I even liked the Book of Boba Fett. All right.
Yeah.
But I think I'm gonna like this a lot.
At this point, I'm more down on Star Wars than you are. I think because I really kind of turned on the Book of Boba Fett and didn't even like season 3 of Mando that much.
I really liked that. You didn't like how it's now about the Mandalorian?
No,
not a Mandalorian.
I do. I like the Mandalorian that's not Din Djarin. I like her very much, and I was happy when I saw her in this Ahsoka teaser too. I like that direction. I'm just done with a lot of the Mandalorian stuff. I'm done with Baby Yoda. I'm done with
Baby Yoda. Yeah, get rid of him.
But this trailer, Ahsoka is easily my favorite Star Wars character.
Oh, wow.
So this trailer did get me stoked again.
I like her quite a lot, and I think she's really cool, and I'm definitely gonna watch the hell out of this show.
And I love Rosario too. So it's a good match. My favorite character with one of my favorite actors portraying her. So yeah, I'm super stoked for Ahsoka.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. And I'm sure after this series premieres in August, we'll have to talk about it.
Yeah, and probably Heir to the Empire movie at some point coming up here.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's going to happen.
Yeah, very exciting news.
All right, so what's your second piece?
Mine is it's an odd piece of news for me because it's not like a real announcement, but starting yesterday or the day before, we started getting set leaks from the Deadpool 3
the yellow costume.
Yeah, so we saw Hugh Jackman for the first time in a fairly comics accurate traditional Wolverine costume. They're filming out of doors, and there's nothing they can do to keep the paparazzis away with the zoom lenses. And so footage from the set has been coming out on Twitter over this last couple days, and it's pretty cool. Like I'm not overly hyped for this movie. I feel like we're going to the multiverse well a little too often, and the water's getting a little less drinkable. But there is something exciting about getting Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds together.
Yeah, I think those two are really good. They have good chemistry. They're both really funny. And I love the yellow costume. I love the yellow and dark blue. That's the one of my childhood.
Yeah.
And my favorite cover was always the Mark Teixeira or Teixeira, whatever.
Yeah, I think he got it right the first time.
Where he's really he has a tall Wolverine. He always is a tall Wolverine, and I'm a tall guy. I don't know. As a kid, I picked up on that, and I was like, I like this kind of Wolverine.
Yeah, and Hugh Jackman's a tall guy.
Yeah,
but it's funny because Mark Teixeira drew everyone really tall, so it's everyone is towering. So even
Jean Grey is 7 feet.
Yeah. So Wolverine is still he's still shorter than everyone else, but everyone is incredibly tall the way he draws them with just these super long legs and long torsos.
Yeah. And so I always loved that art as a kid. The dark blue and the yellow, that was just
you like that?
Jam.
I'm a
brown and yellow.
Brown and tan. That's my favorite.
Yeah, the old school one.
Yeah, the 80s style
miniseries.
Yeah,
I had that miniseries back in the day.
Yeah, the Frank Miller miniseries, iconic too. Yeah. So as much as I'm starting to become the curmudgeon, and you're the one that's excited about this stuff, but I do there's something exciting about this still, even if I'm a little bit of a grump.
You know why I can get excited about these things? It's because I'm I'm extremely selective about it, and I don't watch everything.
Oh, because you never watched Ant-Man Quantumania, so you didn't get bummed
all
out.
This shit. Like I see a thing, I'm like, Blue Beetle. Yeah, fuck that guy. Next,
That looks cute.
Spider-Man, the millionth thing with the 17th Spider-Man. No,
Yeah.
I don't watch any of those.
Yeah.
And so when I see something that tickles me, like it gets me like from a childhood memory, or something's really funny, I'll get into that one thing.
Yeah, and
I'm not drinking from a fire hose.
Right.
I'm just selectively picking up from the dessert buffet.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a lot easier.
Yeah, I appreciate that model of consumption. That's how I consume a lot of things like that. But I consume actually, it's not even true anymore because I am disillusioned. Like, there's several comic book movies that have passed me by, and I have not managed to see them. And I think if I could see them on streaming, and I go, Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Should I watch this? Yeah. Like, I just can't find the motivation.
I saw that with Black Adam. I was like, should I watch that? I like The Rock. This looks dumb.
Black Adam. Here's what I'll say for Black Adam. There is the opening action sequence of him just murdering mercenaries in creative ways for like 5 minutes, set to the Rolling Stones, is pretty epic.
That's cool.
And then you could easily turn the movie off or fast forward to Henry Cavill's cameo at the end, and then call it a day on that movie because you would hate everything in between.
You know, my favorite comic IP thing that's being made right now, sort of actively, is The Boys. So, and I want more Invincible.
Oh yeah, Invincible season 2 is coming very soon.
Because I like that kind of dark superhero stuff that explores, like, what if they were real people?
Yeah.
I really only think you need 1 or 2 Boy Scout superhero properties, and that's Captain America and Superman.
Yeah.
The rest should be flawed people.
Yeah. I think Invincible, and now Invincible's like 20 years old, but of the era is probably the best new in quotes now 20-year-old superheroes to be invented in the aughts. That was a really good series.
Well, that's good. So,
and when we're just getting it trickled out as animation now, which I love.
And that's cool because I'm not going back and getting those graphic novels. So what do we got for podcast fuel?
Our podcast fuel today, keeping with the Highlander theme, is the magnificent Scotch Ale from Silver City Brewery in Bremerton, Washington. It's a big bastard of an award-winning brew, exceptionally smooth with a rich maltiness and a touch of smoky peat character. It was formerly known as Fat Bastard and then Fat Scotch Ale after that. And now it's the Magnificent Ale, which is a less controversial name. It's a Scotch Ale / a wee heavy at 9.2 ABV and 30 IBUs.
Yeah, this is a thick boy.
Yeah, I really never go for wee heavies, and we've had like 2 in a row.
Yeah,
because it's fit the themes of our episodes.
You get these European set movies or whatever, and you end up getting these like really fat beers.
Yeah, this is not a summertime beer, but it is a good Scotch Ale. It was in the limited Scotch Ale section at the Total Wine and More.
Okay.
It was the best one they had. So that's how I ended up with these. And there was only the 2 left. So that's why I didn't get more of them.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and take a quick break and then come back with our deep dive of Highlander.
Welcome back, divers. Let's dive into Highlander, 1986, directed by Russell Mulcahy. When 16th century Scottish warrior Connor MacLeod is mortally wounded in battle, he learns that he is part of a mysterious race of immortals. After a lifetime of hundreds of years, Connor finds himself in the time of the Gathering, when the last remaining immortals must fight to the death to gain the prize, for there can be only one.
That's pretty accurate for a really boiled down synopsis. This movie is really cool in that it starts off in the modern day, and we get a lot of reminiscing or thinking about historical events or flashbacks that are related to current events. And so we keep having these historical fights or romance scenes or friendship montages and all this stuff. And then and then modern story going on. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
As Connor, witnesses things in the modern world, it makes him flashback to events throughout his life. And that's a motif that the show carried over with Duncan MacLeod. He also did that.
Yeah, and they took it directly from the movie. It was straight up.
And it's like I forgot that it opened on a wrestling match in Madison Square Garden with the fabulous Freebirds.
Yeah,
and they actually wanted to shoot an NHL game, and the NHL would not give them permission because they didn't want them focusing on the violence of hockey.
Oh.
And so the WWF had no such compunctions, as they're just based in violence, and so they were happy to get their wrestlers featured.
Yeah, that was a really interesting opening, because I had totally forgotten about that. In my mind, the opening was the battle, the McLeods versus what were they? The
other clan.
Yeah. And they were battling, and of course the Kurgan is there.
Yeah.
And
so cool. And his skull helmet and everything.
Yeah, I have a little story about that, actually. My friend Ugo Serrano, who's a world-renowned armorer, he does armors for all kinds of movies. Like if you've seen the Chronicles of Riddick and all of that, the fancy armor that the alien guys wear or whatever, like he made that stuff.
Cool.
And so he does all this stuff. Anyway, he's a huge, he's a goth, and he's a total nerd for this movie. So he made a replica of the Kurgan's armor, including the helmet. And he met with Clancy Brown, and they took pictures wearing it and stuff, and
with him wearing it or with Clancy?
Both of them.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. So I know a dude with that helmet, and I've seen pictures of old Clancy Brown wearing this helmet.
That's really cool. Are these on Instagram or?
I don't know if those pictures are on his Insta, but we'll get that.
We'll have to check that out.
We'll get some pictures.
We'll regram
post
him
if we can, because he's an awesome armorer. It's what he does for his profession. So I'm sure he wouldn't be upset with people sharing his awesome work. But anyway,
it's not the first time we've mentioned him. He's come up a few times.
Yeah, I just happen to run in the circles of professional armors and sword makers because of my hobby. But yeah, I love that armor. It's obviously fantasy armor.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of one of the main things that sets this in the sword and sorcery fantasy setting, and not something more nebulous, because it's full on fantasy there.
And it's pretty cool how when later on when Ramirez meets Connor, he's telling him about the Kurgan, who the Kurgan is, and the Kurgan is just that's not a name. The Kurgan are a people who are from 3500 BC. So saying that the Kurgan is the oldest and most powerful of us, I'm glad that the writers actually chose an ancient people, 3,500 years before Christ. And so he meets the Kurgan when the Kurgan is already almost 5,000 years old.
Yeah, he's already ancient at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, time is very slippery in this movie. People are from all over Wynn or whatever.
Like Ramirez is over 2,000. He was born in Egypt, presumably during the Roman Empire. If you're actually doing the math, how that would be possible. He must have actually been Macedonian or something ethnically. Who knows? But that's just my history.
Yeah, you would not cast Sean Connery for that role nowadays.
No.
But I watched a lot of behind the scenes and making of material, and Sean Connery was always their first choice for Ramirez.
Oh, he's the most charming guy ever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to be Ramirez.
In our modern politically correct time, we're supposed to be down on Sean Connery for some things.
He's done some uncouth things.
Yes, he's definitely, he has some unevolved ideas about women and said some uncomfortable things. But I also have this primal love for him. It's something. I just love anytime he's on screen. I love this guy.
It's one of those things that I always think back to my my gamer or my analytical brain, and it's there are peak humans in different areas. Like Bruce Lee was
Yeah.
peak human speed, right?
Uh-huh.
Physical reactionary speed. There are people who are just freaks in certain things. He's a freak in the charisma.
He
area.
really is,
Like
yeah.
he's the outlier.
Yeah.
No one is like him.
It's true. And, you know, like to the extent I've been able to accept many Batmen over the years, I have never really accepted another James Bond. Sean Connery is James Bond, and that's fine. That's the final word.
I think that there are acceptable homages, people who didn't try to do it the Connery way,
Yeah.
like the Daniel Craig. He was never trying to be slick.
Yeah.
He was always bedraggled. And that's like a different vibe.
Yeah. And but I've never watched those movies.
They're good.
I know they're good. I know they're good. I know he's great, but there's just something I just like, I see it and I was like, but that's not my guy. That's not my
like
James Bond.
How Bela Lugosi is Dracula.
Yes, Sean Connery is James Bond in that way. But we're not even to performances. We're still in the storytelling segment.
Yeah.
So let's talk about director Russell Mulcahy. He comes out of that exploitation, low budget Australian filmmaking scene that was so big in the 80s that gave us George Miller, the director of Mad Max and all of the subsequent Mad Max movies.
Yeah.
He directed this movie called Razorback. That's like a horror movie about a big pig, and spun this really interesting career out of it, because from there he goes on to make a series of iconic Duran Duran videos. Wild Boys and Hungry Like the Wolf, and he made these really cool videos that kind of set the tone for the MTV era, and then he goes from that into this movie and brings that MTV aesthetic into narrative filmmaking. And not everyone does that well, but he does it very well. Like, he brings the energy of music videos into his storytelling.
Yeah, I think that the way that he had these things shot, we'll get to cinematography next one, but the way that he cut the movie with the sequencing of the various things and how we get a lot of story before we get a lot of the backstory.
Yeah.
And I think that what that does is it lets you kind of feel like you're an insider. Like you almost feel like you are in the know, whereas people like the cops or whatever, the people tracking him, they're not in the know. They don't know what's up. You're in on the joke or whatever. And I think that sort of perspective shifting is extremely valuable and in making audiences buy in to the story.
You're always chasing the story too with someone, right? Like there's always someone that's behind the curve that is finding out the information and kind of leading you to clues.
Yeah, like even the Kurgan doesn't know the whole score.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And so it's a really good way to hook the audience and move you through the story. And by the time we don't really get an exposition dump until Ramirez shows up, and that's 20-30 minutes into the movie. Like you're chasing the clues along with the cops up until that point.
Yeah, because you've got this Nash is an antiques dealer, and then he's actually Connor McLeod. He's a Highland Scotsman, and goes back and forth, and you're like, what's this guy's whole deal? And then finally you learn about and I think it triggers off of the sword, because he's wielding Ramirez's sword. And so I really enjoyed how they did that, and that is only possible with the nonlinear storytelling,
right,
and the effective use of flashbacks. This kind of jumping back and forth could be confusing if it wasn't done well, but in this case, I think that it actually created more depth, more complexity, and it filled you in on what you needed to know when you needed to know.
Yes, the flash. It's the best way of deploying flashbacks. Where you, and it is you mentioned Tarantino, and it is something that he does. He gives you flashbacks, and he gives you nonlinear, because Tarantino is very specific about this. He does nonlinear storytelling. This movie actually does more of the flashback, because a flashback is when the character is remembering the thing. So this movie does do true flashbacks, but they're at the relevant points. Like they're like just when you need the flashback to understand what's going on, that's when you get it, and that gets to the strength of Gregory Wyden's his original script that was embellished on or punched up by Peter Bellwood and Larry Ferguson. Gregory Wyden wrote this in UCLA Film School.
Wow.
This is a college project. He wrote it. His professor was like, "You should sell this because it's a good screenplay." And so, no experience, just like gotten himself an agent, went out and sold this script. And then when Bellwood and Ferguson got a hold of it, they added in more humor and romance and some of the commercial elements that were missing out of Wyden's story. But the whole mythology is all Wyden's creation.
I love the mythology in this.
Yeah, it's great. It is such a strong core concept that has spawned all of these further iterations.
Yeah, it's simple. You don't need to know a ton. That there's immortals and they gain power by decapitating other immortals. And
even that's a little vague, like what the quickening is exactly. And this movie is not well defined.
Yeah,
like the quickening, it allows them to commune with animals. It allows them to sense each other,
have heightened senses.
Yeah, like it does, but it's never like, here's the quickening allows you to do this, this, and this. Never this, but then like
it's not rules based.
Yeah, it's not like that. It's like it's more vibe. It's more about feeling.
And it just seems like the older and more powerful you are, the more vibe you have.
Yeah, totally, yeah. The Kurgan soaked up a lot of vibe.
Yeah, he has the bad vibes only, but that's okay.
and actually, this is more of a visual thing. But when Connor kills him, bad vibes come out of him.
Yeah.
Like the quickening that he receives from the Kurgan is demonic looking.
Yeah, because like when the Kurgan took Ramirez's quickening, it was like a force of nature.
Yeah.
But when Connor killed the Kurgan, it was like, fuck.
It looked like demons are coming out of him. Yeah.
Dragons and shit. It was crazy.
Yeah. So the quickening, everyone's quickening is tied to their vibe. And I think it is strengthened by how little we know about it. The more it got defined in the later movies, where it's like, actually the immortals come from space and they're this ancient race. It's like, oh, you just destroyed it.
Yeah, get rid of that shit.
You ruined it.
I think that Highlander, this movie Highlander, which doesn't have a is the best one, obviously, and you can watch 2 if you want to. It's almost like a what if.
Yeah.
But it's not really amazing. And then 3 and 4 are just meh. No.
Well, they're like episodes of the TV show,
basically,
kind of. Yeah. That's my worry about retouching or remaking Highlander is I feel like every time someone comes and fiddles with it, it diminishes. It doesn't improve on it.
The only way they could do this with fidelity is if they simply have it. They just redo the first one as if you know nothing, make it a mystery or whatever, and don't expand upon it. Just like kind of how like every time they do a Conan, it's you don't need more information about Conan.
Yeah,
just keep it simple. Make it mostly about a journey. Kind of like use the John Wick template. You don't know much about John.
Yeah,
just going forward. It slowly blooms.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the other thing you mentioned it, my last point for storytelling stuff was this mythology that was created. It touches on some stuff for like the Celtic mythology with regard to like the land and the spirits and the animals and things like that. But really, the fact that they're able to make this feel fantastical and otherworldly with very, very little in the way of overt supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
There's no, like, Ramirez is not Merlin.
Yeah.
But he still conveys the magic of the mythos.
Yeah. So I've been, I'm glad you made that connection, because I've been thinking all of these movies have a wizard, right? Mm-hmm. And Ramirez is the wizard of this movie, but he is not a wizard.
He's also the Yoda of this movie.
Yeah. Well, Yoda's the wizard.
Is the wizard.
Yeah. And, he's that guy. He's the older mentor that helps the special boy on his journey.
Yeah, that has kind of a pure heart.
Yeah,
and he's a good guy.
Yeah, because the thing that sets, and I think this is still storytelling, the thing that sets Ramirez and McLeod apart from people like the Kurgan or Fasil is they're not seeking power. They're reluctant to take another immortal's head. They cherish life. They just don't want the Kurgan to be the one to receive the prize.
Yeah, like if I were running a Highlander role-playing game and you were playing, you'd be like Ramirez. You'd want to be friends with every immortal you meet.
Yeah.
You would never engage in combat unless I made you.
Yeah, and then you're like, well, that was the premise of the show too, right?
Yeah,
whereas like
pretty much.
Duncan and Connor are always like, I don't want to fight you. If we get in a fight, I'm going to kill you and take your head and take your quickening.
It's like, I am a badass, but I'd rather be your buddy.
Yeah. There's no reason to rush towards the gathering. We're all doing, we don't need to be in a hurry about it.
The gathering will happen. It doesn't have to be now.
Yeah. And that's because, like, even like when Fasil, who's the first other immortal we meet, right? Mm-hmm. When he attacks Connor in the parking garage of Madison Square Garden, he's like, we don't have to do this, Fasil. He's like, I don't want to fight with you. And Fasil's like, no, there can be only one.
Fasil is pretty badass too.
He is. I mean, the backflip thing's a little strange.
Yeah, you know who he reminds me of, partially because of the weird acrobatic stuff, but also just his demeanor, is he reminds me of the weird mime vampire in Interview with the Vampire in Paris.
Yeah, okay.
He's that guy.
I was thinking of Blade Runner, because Daryl Hannah does all those backflips. Yeah,
that's true.
And there's a lot of Blade Runner drip on this movie. Like it really was like taking that aesthetic and combining
there's
it.
a reason Blade Runner is my favorite movie of all time, and this is very high on my list.
We keep coming back to things noir adjacent. It seems,
I guess we like it.
Yeah, it's something that it speaks to us, because more than half of everything.
We should do a podcast that's way darker and spookier than this.
That's an interesting idea.
Anyway, let's go into visuals. So, cinematography.
Yeah.
The camera work in this movie is amazing. Even from the opening sequence where it's panned way out and everything feels big, like the camera's on a drone, all the way until very like different moments where it's a super tight close up and it makes you feel like you're right there.
So that I'm glad you called that shot. So Jerry Fisher's the cinematographer. Mm-hmm. They used the Skycam in Madison Square Garden, which you've seen that,
like on the wires.
Yeah, it's on 4 wires, and you can move it anywhere in the stadium.
So it is a drone, basically.
Yeah, but it's before drones.
Yeah,
and like Jerry Fisher said, they were able to achieve helicopter shots inside of a building by using the Skycam, and they take it up, zooming in towards Connor, and they have a wide lens on it to take in the grandeur of the stadium, right? But they want to get into a close up, so they have to change the lens at some point. And it just happens that there's flash photography going on, and so in order to get the shot they wanted, if they didn't change the lens, they would have to take the camera right up to Lambert's face, like basically to where it is like almost touching him and would be in danger of bashing him in the face.
Yeah, because it's on wires.
Yeah, so they cut it with the flashes of the flash camera. They do a frame of all white, switch to the close-up lens, and do the rest of the push-in.
Nice.
And this movie is just filled with really innovative camera work, like stuff where they go over Connor's shoulder into his fish tank, go up to the top of the fish tank, and they come out of the lock by his castle.
Yeah.
And it's like it's very complicated, and like they had to engineer things to get these shots.
It kind of reminds me of it definitely reminds me of Ridley Scott style camera work.
Well, yeah, I think Ridley Scott has a lot of influence on this movie for sure. And then since I brought that one up, they basically built a fish tank box to put around the camera so they could submerge it in the lake.
Nice.
And so they could hide that cut when they go from the actual fish tank to lifting the camera out of the lake on a crane. And just, yeah, I was endlessly impressed with Jerry Fisher's cinematography. Like,
for a story that is about people fighting with swords, they did a lot of extremely creative camera work in order to make it feel personal. There's a lot of moments where there's really close-up shots, but they make you feel like you're inside the character's head, or you're seeing what they're seeing, the over-the-shoulder thing, or like it's on the camera's on the ground and you see the Kurgan's feet running under a car or something. And I think that the way that they shot this also reminds me a lot of how they shot Reservoir Dogs.
Non-traditional angles and stuff.
Super close, super far. It's just really cool. It really stuck out to me, and I never knew any of that as a young person because I hadn't analyzed movies. I was just enjoying them.
You just feel it.
Yeah. You feel part of it, and that's probably what drew me into those stories when I was younger, like the movies that made me feel like I was in the movie, and this is one of them.
That's, I think, because there's a lot of, this was a time of sword and sorcery movies in the 80s, but there's just these few movies that we selected as kind of the cream of the crop, and it's that extra Susan on top of it that makes them stand apart from some of the like cranked out movies.
Still can't believe that Beastmaster didn't make the
it's close. It was really close. I might just watch that just for fun because I love that movie.
Yeah, this is a really this movie though it is in the cream of the crop of fantasy. So speaking more of the visuals, I think the special effects were really well done, and I think that they hold up. Like they're just as good as Terminator.
Yeah,
and
that's another movie. There's a lot of the Kurgan is a lot of. There's a lot of Terminator in him.
A fair bit of that, and so like the quickening looks really cool.
I think
when it happens. And I think that like when the tower is being blasted apart, when the Kurgan and Ramirez are fighting, it looks really cool. It doesn't seem cheesy and lame. Like it feels like this is a clash between epically powerful dudes. Yeah,
because they're both two people that have a lot of quickening absorbed, right?
They're
like
thousands of years old each, and they're going at it. They're just titans.
Yeah. Ramirez gets real close to taking
so close. Imagine if Ramirez had got him. Ooh.
End of movie.
It would have just been like a buddy comedy flick from there.
Just them running on the beach and frolicking together.
More of that.
I could still probably watch that. Yeah, that would still work. So another visual element that I want to call out is Alan Cameron, the art director, designed all these incredible sets, Connor's loft apartment with the antique store below it, and his treasure room,
the circular room.
Like that is such a cool set. Like you never once think it's a real place because of the matte paintings outside the windows, but it is such a cool apartment. Like that's one of those things that captures your imagination when you're a kid.
An apartment almost just like that, including a round room, is The Last Witch Hunter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I still have never watched that.
It's pretty good. If you like this movie, you like that movie.
I know you've always been a big advocate for The Last Witch Hunter.
It's like a newer Highlander.
I need to get to that eventually because I've always been curious. But yeah, so Alan Cameron, even though I'm going to give him broadly credit because he just happens to be the guy in all the documentaries.
Yeah.
And even if he isn't the costume designer and the person that builds the set and all of these things, he was the guy that coordinated all those people. That went
kind of the linchpin.
He scouted all the places, took the reference photos, did the preliminary designs and created the aesthetic of this movie. And it's a cool aesthetic. Like it has stood the test of time. I think the movie looks 10 years newer than it actually is.
Yeah, absolutely. This movie looks amazing.
Yeah.
It's super good. And then kind of riffing on that whole sets thing and costuming design and all of that is the historical battle scenes and the historical costumes and all of that stuff. I thought it was really good.
I was wondering what you were going to think about that.
I wouldn't call myself super knowledgeable about that time period, because that's like 700 years beyond where my expertise lies, and 1,000 miles south. But it's really good. Like the fighting is good. I love how they had like a good mixture of like pike and shield and great weapon, and they had a realistic number of fighters. The thing that a lot of movies get wrong about a lot of these historical battles is, like, oh, there were, 30,000 people. Yeah. No. We're talking like 600 guys on a side. That's way
big.
more accurate. Yeah, that's still really big. And so it's like, I feel like it was convincing even from a skeptic's point of view. Like I was able to truly enjoy those scenes without being pulled out of it by like, that's rubber armor. That looks stupid. Why is this breastplate flexing? No, it was all like the real shit.
Stuff that I thought was interesting about that was, first of all, was people that I recognized that came back again in Braveheart.
Oh, yeah, like Angus.
Yeah, and you're like, wow, this guy that just made a career of playing this dude.
Yeah.
Like, and
a badass Scotsman.
And they're all real Scottish extras, right? So they just took all these guys. Probably some of them are reenactors and things like that.
They're always, whenever they're doing an extra call, like on the West Coast, they always hit up the SCA and other reenacting groups for people who can provide their own costumes.
Yeah. Like when they used the 501st Legion on The Mandalorian. They're like, we need stormtroopers, and I know you nerds have made your own armor. Yeah.
Yeah, people that can provide their own gear are always desirable.
And they got all these Scottish extras in there, and they all went down the pub beforehand, had a few of these Scotch ales, and they came out there feeling hot and were really bashing on each other. And it comes through. Like, it's a very convincing. Yeah. They're throwing each other down in the water, and like, it's a brutal, there are some dirty fight.
Shield bashes where that guy wasn't expecting it, and going flying, it doesn't look like someone leaps away from your shield. Yeah. It's more like you get crushed and then you eat shit.
Yeah. They're not a lot of professional stunties, a lot of half-drunk Scots just going out there and playing in the mud.
It was good.
It makes it look real, man. Like, it makes it look brutal.
All right, so I think we can move into audio. Actually, let's just skip that because it wasn't notable. Probably one of the best soundtracks of the 80s.
Yeah, it's when you think of this movie, you think of the Queen songs.
Yeah, Princes of the Universe.
Yeah, and Who Wants to Live Forever. And Give Me the Prize. Like when the Kurgan slams his Queen tape into the tape deck, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. That reminded me of when Lestat slammed the tape into the tape deck for Sympathy for the Devil.
I thought of Interview with the Vampire a few times. Yeah. It takes some cues from this movie for sure.
It's just great movies do great things.
There's a lot of Connor and Louis.
Oh yeah.
For
Connor
sure.
and Louis are like super close.
Yeah. But there's no Lestat. I mean, the Kurgan's not
really.
The Kurgan's too crazy to be Lestat.
He has Lestat has Kurgan moments, but he's not always like that.
No.
He's sometimes a good guy. He wants to be a good guy, even though he's not.
And Ramirez is sort of like the Antonio Banderas character. There's some parallels
also
there.
Spanish.
Yeah. I love the Queen songs. I love Michael Common's score. It's a very traditional score, and they weave them together really well. Queen is uniquely positioned to do that because they're sort of an operatic symphonic rock band to begin with.
Yeah, and there's the interesting Celtic music along with electronic elements
Yeah.
that are included, and so it feels like it's got some kind of fusion
Yeah.
vibes in there. I don't know. It has a really unique and atmospheric like soundscape, and obviously the rock songs are just classic, amazing songs.
They're so good, and they only hired Queen to do one song. Like they were, Mulcahy knew Freddie Mercury, and so he reached out to him, and they were going to do one song. And then Queen just liked the movie so much they kept writing songs, and so they end up writing, I think, 4 or 5 songs. And they had in their contract that they were in charge of the final mix of their music, and they kept having conflict with Mulcahy, where they would come in at night and remix their scenes with their songs in it and push their songs forward. And he'd come in the morning and be like, "Who fucked up the sound mix?" and take the music back down. And so there was a lot of push and pull before we got to this level. And it works. I think it's another one of those. I overuse iconic, but it's another one of those iconic things.
Well, this movie is, there are some movies that we've done that are kind of underground, kind of niche, kind of, I don't know, forgettable.
Yeah.
But I think that this movie, it is big. It took great influences, and it had great influence in the future. It had huge stars in it.
Yeah.
It had huge musical stars in it.
Yeah.
This is a top tier movie with regard to its impact and the quality of the performers that they had involved.
For sure. And it's a true cult classic. Like,
oh yeah,
where it's a movie that didn't find its audience in the theater. It found its audience on home video and in repertory theaters afterwards, like where you're having midnight screenings of Highlander and stuff. It's iconic. It deserves it. It deserves that word.
So themes and motifs. Obviously, there's mortality and immortality.
Yeah.
This whole agelessness concept. I really feel like it's touched on really well with his wife, Connor's wife, how he stays with her all the way until she dies of old age.
Yeah.
It's highlighted with his, I can't remember her name, the girl that he rescued in World War II, the French girl who became his receptionist, who he left his entire business to and stuff, and she was like, you're not coming back. And
Rachel Ellenstein.
he says, you knew this was going to happen someday.
Yeah.
Because she knew he's an immortal.
Yeah.
And so like that whole thing that's a big theme, and it's the same theme of vampire movies.
Yeah, usually, yeah. Or often. It's
a common trope.
I mean, I call the theme "Who Wants to Live Forever," like the song, because it's a tragedy to live forever. It's like, you're either Connor, where you're destined to watch all the people you love grow old and die without you over and over again, or you devolve like the Kurgan, who's like, he's just a beast. He doesn't have any empathy at all.
He doesn't ever love anyone.
Yeah.
He sees
even himself
people as objects.
Like where you see where like because he begins mutilating himself as you get further into the movie,
like safety pins and stuff.
He's just the opposite. He's completely detached from humanity entirely, which is a survival instinct. You know what I mean? That's something he's built up over thousands of years.
Yeah, he just has become a complete savage.
Yeah. So who wants to live forever? The next theme for me would be that quest for power. The Kurgan is on the quest for power, whereas Connor and Ramirez, they're about preventing the Kurgan from getting the power. They're not about they're more about curating power than they are about acquiring it. They're like about who gets power, like influencing things. Like you see Connor fighting in the resistance in World War II. He's using his abilities to not for personal power, but to steer who gets power.
Exactly. Yeah, he stays humane and Yeah, there's definitely a good versus evil thing going on in here. And I really enjoy that. And this whole idea of the nature of power, like what is power? What use is power if you have nothing to live for?
Right.
And that whole idea of do you lose yourself to it like the Kurgan, or do you stay humane and that actually costs you?
Yeah.
Because you can't live forever. So there's a lot of threads in there.
Yeah. So Christophe Lambert talks about the thing that drew him to the role was that despite all the tragedy that Connor had been through, he maintained this sense of humor and maintained, generally a kind and caring demeanor.
Yeah.
No matter what happened, he always remained himself and remained true to himself and never let it destroy him. And so he felt like that was a juicy morsel as an actor to work with. Like,
Yeah.
how do you maintain your humanity over hundreds of years like that?
Yeah, and there are moments where like he decides, okay, I'm gonna invest in this person, like with the cop.
Yeah. With what is her name? Brenda? Yeah. I think it's Brenda.
It's Brenda Wyatt played by Roxanne Hart.
Yeah, because at first he keeps Brenda. Well, because she's investigating him, so he's keeping her at arm's length. But then ultimately he does decide to invest in her or whatever, and but he tests her first, basically, because you don't just get involved with every person that comes along,
every rando, especially if you're a good guy like Connor and you're not willing to just kill them because they're inconvenient.
Right. My next theme is more of a motif. It's just duels, right? The initial script was heavily inspired by Ridley Scott's early film, The Duelist, and just sort of this idea of these people whose whole life is dueling. And the Immortals sort of spun out of that, and so it's just repeated over and over again, in serious ways, in the comical way, like in the 1700 where Connor's getting run through over and over again and never dying.
Yeah.
But duels are a reoccurring motif.
That shtick happens a few times in the TV show.
Yeah.
It's fun. So, do we want to move on to performances?
Well, my last one is Christ metaphor.
Okay.
It's a tired trope in movies. Like even Conan had its crucifixion moment. But Connor is a messianic figure. He dies and he's resurrected. When he's run out of his village, he's in the stocks, so they have him up in the Christ pose. And then in the end, when he receives the gift, he's granted like godlike powers to commune with all of humanity.
Yeah.
So he becomes, like a demigod or whatever. So he has a whole Christ journey over the course of the movie.
Yeah, they really ended this thing in a way that does not lend well to a sequel.
It really, because everything that followed it has had to undo the ending of the movie.
Yeah. It's weird.
It's a very definitive ending for something that I think they wanted from the start to make a franchise out of.
Yeah, then they shouldn't have had him win the prize.
Yeah. It's so easy to be like, there's more out there.
Or there was one who was hidden. He didn't come.
Yeah.
Like he was chained up in a dungeon and he couldn't come. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, now performances. So I have first on my list is I wanted to say Connery, but I think Christopher Lambert really kills it in this movie. He's amazing. Connor is an extremely relatable and nuanced character. I think that the performance helps him be a bit of an everyman, even though he's a hero.
Yeah.
And I think that he has the performance gives like a depth and complexity that makes the character feel very multidimensional.
Yeah. I've always liked Christopher Lambert, and all of the documentaries, everyone always refers to him as Christoph. And I've never heard him it's never written that way. So I've always called him Christopher, everyone involved in the movie refers to him as Christoph.
Interesting.
But even now, it's hard to change because I've called him Christopher Lambert since I was like 5 years old. Because I knew him from Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, which was the movie he did before this one. And I loved that movie growing up. So he was basically a superhero to me already before he was the Highlander. He has this sort of intense stare where it's something very cat-like, and I guess it's because he wears eyeglasses and he doesn't wear them when they're filming, and so it's just it has to do with him not being able to see what he's looking at very well, but it makes him like he looks like a panther, like the way he stares at people.
Yeah.
And there's this intensity, and he has this funny laugh where he's very disarming, and like you said, like he feels like an everyman, while at the same time being completely exotic. He has an accent you can't place, because he was born in America to French parents and raised in Switzerland, and so he's like
totally weird.
He doesn't have a French accent. He doesn't have any accent that you can really pin down on, like, where is this guy from? Like, I'm from lots of places, you know. Like it doesn't. It's like that doesn't. He is, though. He really is from lots of places. He did really struggle with the dialogue. He was not a strong English speaker at that point, and sometimes it was 9 takes in ADR to get the dialogue that they used. He really had to, like, his dialect coach would be there in the ADR booth with him. He'd do a take. The coach would coach him. He'd do a take again until they got what they wanted to use. So he worked his ass off to get this done, and it was worth it. It was really worth it in the end.
It was really good. I feel like he made this character relatable and sympathetic, and a good hero that isn't typical of a lot of action movie heroes.
Yeah, reluctant hero, and it's a tragic hero. So I guess next up, Sean Connery is Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez.
Yeah, the only Scottish Egyptian
Spaniard
chief metallurgist to the King of Spain.
Yeah, totally bizarre, but infinitely charming. The movie lightens up when he gets into it. He brings so much fun into it, and God, I love Ramirez is such a strong character. They have to bring him back from the dead in the second movie because they can't imagine how do we do a sequel to this without him in it. And he's great. He's a great Yoda or Obi-Wan for Connor.
He adds this kind of wisdom and gravitas to the role. At the same time, he keeps it light, and he keeps the film firmly in fantasy. Like he teaches him how to like reach out and feel the senses of the animal. Yeah. He highlights the other supernatural things. He's doing a bit of lore dumping, but it's in the way where he's using Connor as an example when he does it.
Yeah, it's the best kind of lore dumping where you feel like, tell me more. You know what I mean? Like, you're not like, oh my God, I can't take any more of this. It's very much like you're looking for those nuggets of wisdom that he bestows on you with Connor.
Yeah, like he's like, oh yeah, feel what the stag feels or whatever, and then you're like, could he also do that with a bird? Could he like see what the bird sees or fly like it makes you want to know more, like, because from then on all it really is Connor is just preternaturally aware of everything. Yeah. It's just kind of showing you how he has a hyper awareness of his surroundings. And that's probably also due to being in a centuries long sword fight essentially. With all these other immortals. So,
and they need to be aware of each other because, like, Ramirez found his way to Connor through the quickening, right? Like, he's through sensing him when he awakened. So that means every immortal, like,
and that's why the Kurgan was tracking him. He felt him from long ways away.
Even before he awakens, the Kurgan knows he's there.
Because he's, at that point, he's like 4.5, 5,000 years old,
Yeah.
and he's hunting. He's like, oh, there's a baby one over here. I'm gonna go and eat that one.
Grim, but probably that's Kurgan style. Like,
yeah, he's like, well, I can sense them before others can because I'm more powerful, so I'm gonna get them first.
Yeah, yeah, and Ramirez, I think, knows he can't one-on-one take the Kurgan, so he's trying to get a posse together.
Yeah.
Where he's training people up. And we keep talking about him, so let's move on to Clancy Brown as the Kurgan.
Clancy Brown, he gives this menacing and intimidating performance. He's obviously the villain in the movie, and he brings this interesting sense of like kind of power and evil to the role.
Yeah.
And he's sometimes a little overly evil seeming, but it's more like he seems mad because he's truly checked out from interacting with people.
Yeah.
Even when people try to have positive interactions with him, he's just like he's just terrible. He can't even like let someone be nice. And it's just
what is he
horrible.
What does he say to the clerk at his cheap hotel where he's like don't ever talk to me or something like
don't ever talk to me or something like that, and then and when the guy was just trying to be nice, and then the clerk gets all mad and starts yelling at the drunk guy.
Right. The thing I found really fascinating, because the Kurgan is again an iconic villain. He's such became an archetype, like the leather jacket with one sleeve cut off, Lobo in DC Comics adopted that look. That's totally Kurgan style. Clancy Brown came from playing Frankenstein's monster in The Bride. That was his credit before this one. That's where they saw him and where I would have seen him before. The original script, the Kurgan is more of a gentleman character.
Okay.
He's more of like
a monster.
He's like a gentleman duelist and wears like a bowler hat. And that was the character Clancy Brown wanted to play. And I was really shocked that this was not his choice. This is what he was pushed into doing, because it is such a great performance. And I would have given him I still do give him a lot of credit for it, but a lot of this comes from Mulcahy's direction, like of amping the Kurgan up and making him into a monster. And Clancy Brown has made a career of playing these sort of monsters ever since then.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate he's sort of typecast as a villain, but he's a great villain. He's just so good.
Getting typecast as a great villain isn't such a bad
I'm always
career.
He's one of those character actors, like when he showed up in the first season of The Mandalorian, I'm like, it's Clancy Brown and he's a big devil guy. Like, that's perfect. It's awesome. I just always love anytime he shows up.
Yeah, and this character had a lot of influence. I mean, this performance was extremely good. When he was in the 1500s, when he was fighting Connor and then later fighting Ramirez, he has menace and he has darkness, but he's not fully unhinged.
Yeah.
But then 400 years later ish, he's kind of gone.
Yeah, where he's like licking priests and stuff in the church.
He becomes very punk rock.
So Clancy Brown, in between takes or whatever, he'd have the headphones on, and they said that he would just be over there listening to heavy metal music and getting hyped, kind of psyched up for the next scene. And everyone was afraid of him. And he's, by all accounts, is a super gentle spirit, nice guy. But when he was in Kurgan mode, everyone was like,
he's doing it method.
You stay the hell away from that guy. What do you think he's listening in 1986? What's he got in the Sony Walkman?
Slayer, Metallica.
Which Metallica album is out then?
Ride
the Lightning?
Ride the Lightning and Kill 'Em All. Probably listen to Kill 'Em All.
Yeah, it's a kill. He has a Kill 'Em All. You know what? I think you got it. You got it. he's jamming Kill 'Em All over there.
It's like the Horseman.
Yeah. I think so, because that's got a lot of punk edge to it, and there's a lot of punk in his performance. So, yep.
He's extremely punk rock in this
we
performance.
We can extrapolate. He's listening to Kill 'Em All. Overkill's strong, too.
I wish we could ask him. That would be really cool. Or, I mean, come on. If he's listening to Slayer, like Angel of Death.
Yeah.
And like that would be so strong.
Is he buying tapes? Is someone making a mixtape? Is he crafting his own Kurgan mixtape?
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. That'd be.
We know the Kurgan likes tapes.
The Kurgan keeps a tape in his leather jacket.
Kurgan is pretty cool. Who do we got next?
I had Roxanne Hart as Brenda Wyatt. She's kind of the I don't know what this role is called, but she's the one who's not in the loop, who is she's the mundane.
She's a metallurgy expert that is a part-time forensic pathologist for the police.
Yeah.
That's weird. That's a weird cross.
Well, I think that police have to hire.
So she's
experts.
an outside contractor.
Yeah.
She's not an actual police
and
employee.
probably does a lot of testifying. At courts.
Okay, yeah, I buy it.
And she gives a good performance. I feel like she seems really smart in the role. The writing is good, and she performs it really well. She seems like an extremely strong, determined character.
Yeah,
and I really like that. And I feel like her performance was she was a good love interest character for Connor without being like lame and one dimensional.
Yeah, she's not. Even though she does get taken hostage, she's not a damsel.
Yeah, because she helps, she saves him.
Yeah, and she donks the Kurgan on the head with a pipe.
Yeah, she saves Connor from losing his head. Yeah. And is a big part of why Connor won the quickening.
No, and I know it's not. We shouldn't pit women against each other. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to be Team Heather McLeod. If it's between Heather and Brenda, I like Beatty Edney as Heather McLeod more as a love interest.
Okay, interesting.
I prefer the historical love interest to the modern love interest.
Yeah. Well, the thing is I feel like they're very different in their impact because you have to think about perspective. The flashbacks are from Connor's perspective.
Yeah.
So it's all filtered through his lens pretty much. And so she's more like a storybook romance. She's very rose tinted.
Oh, right, because it's just his fond memory.
Yeah, she's perfected through hundreds of years of reminiscing, whereas Brenda Wyatt's a real person.
That is a really great observation. I love that. Yeah, that's totally, that reads for sure.
I think his first wife is his ideal. She's his like, his first love, and she will always be perfect. And so in his remembrances, that's where she'll be. But I think Brenda Wyatt's a smart, strong, capable lady, and Roxanne Hart does a good job.
Yeah, for sure. Anyone else you want to highlight?
Those that I wrote down. There are innumerable.
There's a lot
bit parts that are really cool.
John Polito shows up as Detective Edzard, who he's just always a dirtbag. Like he was the pawn shop guy in The Crow.
Oh yeah.
And so when he
this movie and The Crow,
when he showed up, I was like, "Holy shit! Look how young he is!" And then
be the Krogan.
The Krogan. That's your next Halloween costume. You have to mash those two up.
Oh man, no one would get it.
We talked earlier. James Cosmo as Angus MacLeod.
Oh yeah.
It's a very small part, but he's one of our.
He rescues him from getting burned.
Yeah, he gets him out of there so he doesn't get burned at the stake. That's good bro move. I don't think there's anyone. I mean, I've got the whole cast here, but there's really, it's all a lot of small parts.
If your bro gets filled with the devil spirits, and you think that's the way it went down, still banish him. Don't burn him.
His original girlfriend, Kate, played by Celia Ermy. I was shocked at how fast she flipped on him.
She turned fast.
I looked at Lisa and I was like, if I died and came back from the dead, you would be happy, right? Like, you wouldn't run me out of the village.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like, okay, so he comes back from the dead, and so her first thing is he's filled with the devil instead of it's a miracle.
Yeah.
Jesus smiled down.
That's all in the eye of the beholder. Like, you decide. And she went the wrong way on that one. Bad. That's a bad girlfriend.
Yeah,
He's better off without her.
She was not loyal in the least.
He was better off without Clan MacLeod too, except for Angus, who was the only good road dog.
And later Duncan.
Yeah, who mysteriously was the adopted cousin or whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever. It's explained in the first episode. Actually, I didn't get the gift, and you're my adopted brother. Anyway, enjoy the show. I won't show up again.
Yeah, goodbye.
I guess we're up to personal highlights.
All right.
This is hard. What's your personal highlight?
Yeah, I searched my heart because I've memorized this movie.
Yeah.
And there's like a million scenes that I love and little micro moments that I think are worthy of being personal highlights. But I'm going to go ahead and go with a scene that highlights two of my very favorite characters. And that has to be the Kurgan Ramirez fight.
Ooh, okay, good one.
And so I love these characters. They're both near and dear to my heart. I love the Titanic struggle, just destroying this medieval stone tower as they fight. It's an awesome sword fight scene.
And that's a great set too. I thought that was a real castle, like the other castle, but that was all completely a set. Which you find out when they start blowing it the fuck up.
Yeah, and so there are so many things I could call out, different scenes that I love, but this one was it highlighted the true power of these two immortals and what Connor was going up against.
Yeah.
So how about you? What's your personal highlight?
Ooh, I also went with a Ramirez scene, and that would be the Connor Ramirez bromance montage.
I almost went with the training montage.
Yeah, where they're running on the beach, they're up on this mountaintop on the Isle of Skye, and they get this cool rotating helicopter shot.
Pretty legit.
There's just all the stuff where they're running with the stag, and the training on the ice moment that they stole in Batman Begins. There's just so many great moments, and the two characters have this great bromance with each other, and the two actors have this great bromance with each other, and the fun is just electric. You can just sense how much fun they're having doing all this stuff.
Yeah, it's just all smiles.
Yeah, and it ends up being like this high point in the movie. Like, emotionally, it's this high point. It's one of the most fun segments in the movie, and it sets the stage for the person that Connor is for the rest of his life. Like, Ramirez becomes, like his mentor, and like, this is the right way to do things.
Yeah.
And he carries his sword, his samurai sword for the rest of his life.
Yeah, Ramirez is the best of the wizards in any of these movies.
Ooh, well, we still have one movie left. So let's not. We'll figure that out next episode.
Okay.
Who's the top wizard? What worked for you?
So there's just so much. First of all, the cinematography and camera work, I have to call that out. We talked about it at length, so I won't go on about it. I also mentioned in the storytelling segment about how I absolutely love the mythology of this world. Urban fantasy is a thing that's very near and dear to my heart. I love it. I love sword fighting. I love all of this stuff. It kind of feels like this is the modern sword and sorcery movie, kind of how Star Wars is the futuristic knights and wizards movie.
Yeah.
This is rather than being set in history or in sci-fi, this is the now version of it.
Yeah.
And I just absolutely love that mythology. And then finally, I'm just going to call out once again from the performances, Clancy Brown's portrayal of the Kurgan. He was just an absolute, just heinous villain, start to finish, pure monster, but a monster that you're really interested in.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like a rabid bear or something. It was like this calculating, cunning, horrible thing, this ancient implacable hunter.
Right.
And I just absolutely loved that character, and Clancy Brown brought him to life. So what about you? What worked for you?
You're not going to believe this. Almost the exact same things. So first, the mythology that Greg Weiden created. Second, Mulcahy's direction and Fisher's cinematography. Third, I said the Kurgan and Ramirez.
Okay, yeah.
So they both have so much personality. Like those characters are just so dynamic and engaging. And they're what sticks with me as I think about the movie. I think about them the most, I think. And then the one thing you didn't that you didn't touch on, so I'll elaborate on it, is the cost of eternal life. I love the tragic aspect of the story. It's a very tragic life that these guys are living. Ramirez tells Connor, he's watched 4 wives grow old and die. And tries to warn him against doing that to himself. And then Connor, of course, he does it anyway. I really like how they portray that tragedy but still like Connor perseveres through the tragedy and lives on and still finds joy in life. And I thought that's one of those things that is why this movie has lasted and why it's so compelling. Harder one. What didn't work for you?
So there were a couple of moments that were definitely products of the time.
Okay.
There was a casual homophobia from the cops, dropping the F slur.
Yeah,
a little casual racism from the cops about the Vietnamese neighbor.
Yeah. Oh, that one. That was a cringe
yeah,
joke.
It's just that those things, even though they were trying to point out that those cops were heels, that they were not good dudes, I think they would have done it in other ways in a modern sensibility. Those are not glaring because it's just a product of the time as what was normal.
And it is portraying those cops as like you said, heels, like dipshits.
Yeah,
and
these guys are idiots. You don't like them.
Yeah,
I mean, there are idiots who would say those exact same things in the modern day.
He goes, "Why are you cruising to get some ass?"
It's a weird accent. I think that the only moment that I felt like it was a little overdone was I felt like the final quickening scene. It started going a little psychedelic on me.
It was too much?
It was a little too much CGI and it was a little too shaped. It wasn't raw enough.
Okay.
Like, I like just the raw explosions of energy and stuff and just the coursing power from previous quickenings. I understand that this is the final quickening from the most powerful immortal. I get it. And he's a true villain. But it didn't look amazing, and I kind of was like, well, I would have rather have this just like blown apart half a city, to show how powerful it is.
More of the lightning and windows breaking and stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But that's just a personal preference. I don't actually think it's a flaw. It's not anything that didn't work in the movie. It just wasn't my jam.
This is not from my list, but if I was going to pick a Kurgan moment that I thought was a bit much, is when he carjacks the old couple and cuts the roof off the car.
I have a thing in here, and I skipped over it because we had already talked about the Kurgan's madness. And I feel like him carjacking them and the lady standing up in the thing
in the car, and then she's on the hood for some reason.
It wasn't the Kurgan. It was actually just the performance of those old people that I thought was lame and schlocky.
Okay.
And I feel like it was just like they were trying to add too much levity. I would have rather have it be a little more like The Crow with the gang members and the fire it up. I wanted that to be his fire it up moment where he's just kind of going crazy and being destructive. I don't need like these weird old people doing stupid shit.
To me, that was like the one moment where I felt like tonally it really went over the line. It went up to the edge lots of times, but that was the one where I was like, that felt corny.
Yeah.
in a movie that has not felt corny.
There was a little bit of corniness and a little bit of cheesiness with the Kurgan stuff.
Yeah.
And some of it could really be explained through his madness, but some of it was just too much.
Yeah.
So what about you? What didn't work for you?
I liked how you just described it a little bit ago, but I'm not a big fan of the Brenda Connor romance.
Okay.
So the way the writers talked about it was that was relating it to the Dracula and Mina, right? Where Dracula meets Mina and sees her as the reincarnation of his love from the past. And they do storytelling wise, like there's a lot of visual, like she's usually wearing tartans, and like there's a lot of things that are tying her, and she has swords in the house. Like there's a lot of things that are tying her to the past visually. But I just I just don't feel like they actually sold that idea, like what they were reaching for.
It did kind of feel like they flipped a switch a little bit.
And then now they're in love.
Yeah. Like he finally allowed himself to go there.
Yeah. And I just didn't for whatever, it's not like a movie ruiner, but I just didn't feel that they achieved what they were reaching for with that. And this was what I really stretched to get this one. I don't like the happily ever after ending with the voiceover from Ramirez. Not for the least of why, but because what we talked about earlier, everything that has come afterwards has had to undo that ending. And so this sort of like put a bow on it, and after that you can sense all of humanity and bring the world together, and just like, and you can have children and grow old and die and be happy, and all of this, like they give him such a happy ending. And then it's not the fault of the movie, but they immediately undercut that with everything that comes afterwards.
Sure.
So I just feel like it really didn't need that. Like it didn't need the voiceover. You could just show the two of them go off, have that same montage without saying all of that stuff, and not have painted yourself into a corner the way they did.
I agree.
And that's all I got. And I really had to reach to find those two things.
Yeah.
So what's our rating?
So this is a really tough one. This is a tough movie to rate because I have to try to separate myself. There are some movies where I have just gone with my nostalgia and indulged in it. Yeah. And I was really trying to analyze this to feel like, is this a 5-star movie? Because it's certainly a 4-star movie or a 5-star movie, in my opinion. And so I feel like it has so many strengths and so few weaknesses. It has absolutely been influential across movies. Yeah. I feel like it was influential in pop culture, and it has become a true classic. Its only stain is really the sequels. Yeah. I mean, it's so good. So I'm gonna call this a tween. It's like a tweener, but I think it is closer to a 5 than a 4, so I'm going to give it.
You're going to give it the 5?
Yeah.
Okay. I landed on a 4. And I think I toyed with the 3, and it just, no, it's definitely not. It is a real classic film. I don't think it doesn't quite have whatever that X factor that makes me give something a 5. Sure. But I think this is a good strong 4. In my opinion,
it's certainly at least a 4. I was very close to a 4. I feel like this would be a 4.5 on a half scale.
Indulge on. I'm happy to have you indulge in a 5 every now and again.
It's a really, really good movie, and I also really love it. So that makes it hard to say no to. The critics across the board don't tend to agree with us. They're closer to a 4 or a low 4, like a 71% or something like that. But screw those guys. They don't know what they're talking about.
Not like us.
No, we're pros.
Yeah.
We have over 70 episodes under our belt.
I mean, when we started doing this, and I said, that we're not going to be critics, we're enthusiasts, and yada, yada, yada. I do at this point feel like I'm a film critic. I no longer think I'm not able to turn that off easily. I look at everything with a critical eye now.
Every time I watch a movie, I'm looking at the cinematography. I'm listening to the soundtrack. I'm looking at individual performances, directorial choices.
Yeah.
It's just a thing.
We accidentally became critics.
It's just like being a musician. When you listen to music, you become you just have to listen with a songwriter's ear. So let's go ahead and take a quick break and come back with our ending segment.
Welcome back, divers. It's time for our final segment, the one where I ask Dave, what are you into right now?
All right. Well, I've been doing my normal stuff, but lots and lots of miniature painting.
Your upstairs table is full of shit right now.
Yeah, I've been painting like so many miniatures, and it's coming out really nice, but nobody wants to hear about that. So I have...
Hold on. Your cats don't mess with it when you're painting miniatures?
No, not at all.
That's amazing.
Jet loves me, and he comes over and he'll even if he's on the table, he'll walk up.
Yeah.
I'll reach over with my left hand and I'll pet him for a minute,
and then shush him.
He'll turn around and walk away. He just wants to get some acknowledgement.
He's a dice goblin, but not a miniatures goblin.
No? Well, when I leave it at night, I put the miniatures into the plastic organizer thing. I don't leave them on the table.
It'd just be too much to expect.
I have found a mini on the floor before.
Yeah.
But never while I'm doing it.
Okay.
He's respectful.
Okay, good to know. Okay, get on to what you're actually doing.
I actually have 2 music recommendations.
Ooh, nice.
While I've been playing with my toys, I've also been listening to a lot of music. And so first one is a new band to me, but they're not new. They started in 2013 called Knocked Loose.
And
dope. They just put out a 2-song digital release that spurred me to check out their previous releases. And this shit slaps. This is it's like a metalcore band, but their singer sings firmly in a hardcore style, which makes it better. Because he's not doing Cookie Monster shit, but the guitars and the drums are heavy as fuck, and the breakdowns just destroy. But the whole time he's doing that hardcore scream yell, and it's dark, it's sinister. The videos are great. And Knocked Loose has just earned a spot. Like, I've been listening to this.
There's some really strong hardcore bands out there right now, and they're one of them, top of the pile.
Yeah, I really, really like this band. I've been listening to all of their older albums, and this is a band from Kentucky, not really known for their hardcore scene, but yeah, they kill. The other one is a brand new release from a fairly new band that started in 2022 called Black Braid. They're kind of the darlings of the American black metal scene right now.
Okay.
So Black Braid is an American black metal project from the Adirondack Mountains, New York. It's a solo project from John Krieger. He's a Native American.
Oh, I've heard this. Yeah, actually, I've heard this band.
Yeah, and so it's a one-man black metal band, and it has all Native American themes, and he incorporates some Native instrumentation, like flutes and drums and things, and some Native style folk music into his black metal, and his black metal is truly legit. Like he's really, really good. And he has a live band, so they tour around, but it's all one guy. And Black Braid 1 was short. It was barely over an EP, and some people like raved about it, and some people were like, whatever, man, this is just, you're hyping this up because he's a native and it's novel. But the second album, which came out just a year later, is full length and really good. It's extremely strong. So if you like black metal and you're curious what would Native American black metal sound like, check out Black Braid 2, because super, super good.
Shouts to Diver Amber, because she actually sent me that video of that guy at some point. So that's where I heard of that before, and it's really cool. Those are both good recommendations that I second.
These are not just things I like I saw on like Metal Monthly from Banger TV, which is my favorite metal YouTube channel. This is shit that I just circulate. I listened a lot. All right, what about you? What are you into right now?
All right, so I started yesterday or the day before. I started in on the Skull Island anime or anime-influenced animated adventure television series, because if it's not made by Japanese artists,
it's just sparkling cartoon water.
Yeah, exactly. I really had low expectations for this, despite being a big fan of Kong and the Monsterverse and all of that stuff. I didn't really expect anything of this. And then Lisa and I were looking for some phoneable content, where you're let's put something on.
I could give you 3 phoneable shows right now because I've been painting a lot of minis.
And so we're like, let's put something on that we don't have to engage with all that deeply. We'll watch the Skull Island show. Wrong. We actually engaged very deeply with it.
Nice. Perfect.
We just got sucked into it. It's got a very weird tone where it seems like it's a family show, and then a giant kraken comes and squishes someone's dad and blood sprays everywhere, and you're like, I thought this was a kid's cartoon, but it is extremely violent. It's just it's very brutal. It's set in the 1990s, so some 20 years after the movie Kong Skull Island. And it deals with these people that are shipwrecked on Skull Island and a young girl who has been shipwrecked there for 10 years and living on her own and is sort of feral.
Where do you watch this?
On Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've got 2 episodes left, and I might just watch them when I get home from recording, because this show just completely captured us. And like I said, it was going to be a show that we were going to watch and play games on our phone, and ended up being a show that we've binged through the whole series. And it's not that long. It's only 8 episodes, and they're short episodes.
Oh, nice.
And it looks like all the Kong action is really backloaded in these last 2. So Kong's gonna fight that giant squid here, I think, coming up, and I'm looking forward to it.
Dang, I'm interested in watching that. Only 8 episodes. I could do that in a day.
Yeah, and they're short. The little 20-minute cartoons.
Yeah, I'll do that in a day. So let's talk about the demise of Nick and Dave and the metaverse.
More like the demise of the metaverse.
Yeah, Nick and Dave will prevail.
Yeah. We alluded to this earlier. This is the penultimate episode of the podcast. We decided to knock it on the head after concluding this Sword and Sorcery series.
Yeah, and we'll be about 75 episodes in when we're done.
Yeah, that's a good run. We know what we're doing now.
Yeah.
But we're not quite done with podcasting. It just, the metaverse has become a hostile environment.
Yeah, before we started this podcast, Facebook was called Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Zuck changed it all to Meta, and then they created the metaverse, we immediately
created, in quotes, the metaverse.
Eric Cross created the fiasco that he called the metaverse, even though it's been a sci-fi term since the 80s,
right?
Which is where we got it. It literally just buried us on every social media platform, and especially the Meta social media platforms. We're not in the algorithm at all because we use Meta in our tag.
Name. Yeah.
So it's just completely gone. We have no organic reach, and so we still have our loyal divers who always listen. Our numbers have not changed.
Yeah. They were creeping. The core has stayed the same,
but they were going up, and then it kind of went back down to the core because the casual, I guess the organic reach listeners completely went away. So if you're listening to this right now, you're a core diver, and we thank you.
Definitely.
And so what we're doing is you don't have to look anywhere to find the new episodes because we're changing it all on the back end. Your subscription through your podcatcher will keep. It'll keep up. It'll just have a new name and a new numbering. We're starting over fresh. And we decided that one of the big things that we learned through 75 episodes of podcasting was that we're rambling motherfuckers. Like we just let it go. And so we needed to narrow the focus.
Yeah.
And what is our evergreen topics that we could literally talk about forever. Spooky shit.
Yeah, we've always been, it's been in our ramble that we're a podcast that focuses on cult classics, and we're going to go deeper into that cult territory.
Yeah, we're going to start a cult. We're going to get some cultists. That would be you.
Yeah. Farmer divers will be indoctrinated into our cult, hopefully.
And so we're going to be narrowing our focus in a big way, so that things are a little more on trend with this new focus, which we're going to talk about more as we go.
Yeah.
So what that's going to mean for most of the divers is you're only going to miss one drop. You're going to miss the August 15th drop. We're not going to have anything out. The August 1st and August 15th, right?
Well, in September, it's the month of September. We won't have any.
Oh,
content.
Is that it?
Yeah.
So we're basically taking 1 month off.
And then we'll be back with something new in October.
And we will have a new episode 0 and 3 episodes dropping all at once, so you can do, Netflix style or Amazon style, just binge the first few, and then we'll be back to we'll be back on our bullshit. And so we'll have more details next time where we'll actually tell you the name and all of that, and then hopefully you will stick with us and even like the new style, because it's going to be like this, but with a tightened focus and a little more, I guess I'm going to call it a little more effort.
Yeah, a little less of a shotgun approach like we've had.
Little less yak and slap.
Well, should you give them the call to action?
Yeah, so subscribe to us on your favorite podcatcher, as well as YouTube, Spotify, and Audible, because all of that will stay the same, because we can change it on the back end.
Right.
Don't forget to leave us a review. 5-star review costs you nothing, but means everything to us.
And new episodes of Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse drop the 1st and 15th of every month, and you can find us on all social media platforms across the Metaverse as at Deep Dive the Meta, including now Threads, where
Threads. I like it better than Twitter. Fuck Twitter.
Even though Threads is part of the Meta umbrella, they are trying to grow right now, so we're not throttled in the same way we are on the other 2 platforms, and we're getting new followers for the first time in forever, which kind of shows that we were being suppressed.
Shadow banned. Ouch.
Yeah. So we're on Threads. We're on Twitter watching that ship go down, and we're on everything else. You already know that. We're on Pinterest, but no one likes that one.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is really goodbye.
Don't say goodbye. Say good journey.